Hi, happy Friday and happy New Year because this is our first leadership lunch chat of 2024. My name is Jennifer Wilson and I'm here with my good friend Amy Vetter. Hi, Amy.
Hello.
And I think this is our fourth calendar year, maybe, of
hmm
leadership lunch chat. We started it out of the pandemic and have been going strong since. And we process leadership ideas and issues and challenges and things we're grappling with every Friday at 11 o'clock Central, 12 o'clock Eastern. We do take time to travel because both Amy and I are travelers in our work. But today we thought we'd process like intentions for the new year. And we know that it's 19 days into the new year. And so you might be like, hey, man, my intentions were set. You might be one of those people that sets those intentions like, the 26th of the year before at the very end and says, this is what I'm going to do, and a wonderful ahead planner. And some of you might be like, oh, intentions, that never works. Those never hold out. I'm just going to go with the flow. And so we get that we've got all sorts of different mindsets around this, but both Amy and I try to put some language to the things that we're committed to in the upcoming year, just to try to call ourselves forward into those things. And we both have that habit, had it coming into our friendship. And so, Amy, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of start the discussion of your intentions for 2024.
Sure. So, Happy New Year, everyone. We're excited to be back. And I think that's really where my intention starts, is because both of our schedules last year got crazy. And as we talked about getting started here, has floated into the new year. And one of the things that I really take time with my team and myself is really setting intentions. I always do it with my boys as well, as the new year happens. And I know not everyone believes in setting intentions, because it's not just about setting the intention, it's about following through with it and remembering it and reminding yourself about it throughout the year. Because one of the things about it is that if you aren't intentional, it doesn't happen. You can call out as many words as you want in the world, and you've got to make sure that you're focused on it. And so I think that's why we wanted to start with this today, is if you got away from it, if you did think about it at New Year's, but now we're midway through January and it's already fallen off, which it can, what can you do to get it back on track? And one of the things that when I was reviewing the year last year and really started looking at what happened last year, is I think last year was probably the first, I don't want to call it normal, but it got back to the way things were before COVID. Everything was backfiring and then some, because there were things created during COVID. And so going into the year, not really knowing what was to come, you kind of just did everything because you weren't sure, what was happening and what wasn't going to happen. And so for this year, I think the intention is to be more intentional, and, not have that, mindset that it's all going to go away, to just be in the present. And so for me, it was really about simplification and making sure that myself, my team, my family, we're all focused on the right things. And I actually gave this book, actually, it's right here, this book, U Squared. It's like this very, very small book that I went to a summit with Lewis Howes in October or September, and he had read from it. And it talks about quantum leaps and things that you have to do in your life that might be uncomfortable, but it should be with ease. And sometimes there's things that we just have to make shifts or transitions, because when we review, it's not something you want to keep repeating, or even if you're in maintenance mode, there's somewhere else you need to go. And so, that was the challenge with everything we did in our strategy meetings to keep things simple and simplified is, what are the quantum leaps we need to make, I need to make, and not to get distracted from those.
Almost like a vision, or the big picture, the big ask, the big intention, so that we don't allow all the little day-to-day things to get in the way of the big quantum leap or big intention. I love that, Amy. I love that. So one of my intentions for 2024 is creation. That's the word, that one of my words or guiding principles that I'm going to use. And to me, it has a bunch of different possible meanings. One of them is an empowered meaning I can create whatever environment, circumstances, feelings that I want, that I have the ability to cause them or create them, as opposed to that less empowered way of looking at things where you might think, I just have to deal with my circumstances instead of I create my circumstances. So I love the idea of thinking all year about I'm at cause for my circumstances. That's number one. Second is creation of content. I just have a ton of content inside me right now that needs to come out. And, I need to schedule it and get it, barf it out. It's got to come out. So, and then the third is I am working with a group of really great people to create a strategy or a series of strategies to grow our pipeline as a profession. And it is a creation. And it's an innovation creation exercise. And I'm just really excited to get that created and formed and out there for the profession to give opinions about, but also to unify around and start working together to implement. And so that's creation is going to be one of my guiding words, and I'm going to carry it with me all year long.
Yeah. Well, and such important work you are doing in the creation mode. And when we aren't in creation mode, that means that there's going to be differing opinions. So it is really important that we see all sides and can stick with being creative and not, I think a lot of people are in that creation mode. And I think as an entrepreneur, you're always in a creation mode. There's never a time you don't have to step back and recreate and rethink and reignite what you're doing and staying motivated and keeping your team motivated and that sort of thing. And so I think in creation mode, and we see it in the things that we do with consulting, is a lot of times people go off on their own and try to create in a silo. And it's very hard to do that. It is hard to come to consensus when each person has a vision, but then usually what comes out at the end is something better.
Oh, for sure. No question about it.
Yeah. So one of the things that just going back to quantum leaps, and that goes with creation, is the fact that there's usually something in your gut that that you should be doing, that we push down. And when we say gut, a lot of that's our intuition, but it's where we feel it. We feel it in our body. Those thoughts keep repeating in our mind. I need to do this. I need to do this. And then when you actually step back and pause and give yourself that silence and planning time, it's, can you make it happen? Can it be possible? And without going to the worst case scenarios, right? Like what is possible. And then once you figure out what is possible, then dealing with all the other things that you have to the how and
And
the
the
what.
who.
Yes, but not necessarily doing that in the creation process is allowing that to happen and being able to ensure that it feels right. Because, that to me is a big piece of intention setting. And when you're trying to figure out goals, whether it be for your business or yourself, that you keep stepping back and saying, is this too much? Are we going to overwhelm ourselves? And where do we need to simplify as well? And I know I've had to constantly be doing that, because if I'm going to stick with simplification, then I can't necessarily do everything I want to do. And so making those hard choices, or where you're going to delegate it or move it around, are important.
I've had simplify as my word of the year, or one of my 3 words of the year, many years in my 24 years of being a part of Convergence Coaching, having this a part of me. And I feel you, simplify is a hard one. And it comes usually, I feel like it pops up as one of my words when, we've been in growth mode and we have a lot of plates spinning and a lot of things going, and we just have to start sort of prioritizing where are we going to put our efforts and how can we do this simpler. Well, everything starts to feel complicated. And I just think all of this is all part of the entrepreneurial cycle, because you do creation and then it's awesome, and you do too much creation and then you're like, gosh, I need to simplify. And sometimes we have to simplify to create room for creation. Sometimes we have to simplify to get rid of some stuff that would allow for some of the better creations to flourish, So I hear you on simplify. It's not one of my words this year, because I'm going through something, kind of big, that I can't simplify this right this minute. I don't picture it as possible. So I'm sort of letting all possibilities be there. I'm not ready to simplify. Maybe that's the way to say it. And so, another of my guiding words, and this darn word, it's with me always because it's what I do for a living. So might sound weird for it to be one of my guiding words, but is change. And change is a science, and change is a way of being, and change is a verb that you cause. It's a bunch of stuff, but for me this year, it's going to be trying to be a part of, with all the people I'm working with inside my team, with you, Amy, with the advisory group that I'm guiding, with my clients, my firm clients, and with the coaches that I'm coaching, that we realize that all of us have to change something to get to a better place.
Yes.
And that change isn't about like, you have to change and then we'll get there. Or if only they would change, and neither you nor I have to, if only they would change. That it's, again, back to that sort of personal responsibility. Creation, empowered creation. Well, change what can I change?
Yes.
How can I change my thinking? How can I change my behavior? How can I change my habits? How can I change whatever, to cause change instead of what can I make other people change? So I'm going to be really playing with that idea. The other thing is, I do encounter constantly where change is not being successful, or not being embraced, or not being accepted. And the science of change is not being applied. Change management is a science. And if you apply the principles, you will drive change. And so both my personal responsibility for what can I change, and then also how can I get more people to apply the principles of change management to the transformations they are committed to, that would cause them to be easier for them, that would make them happen more effectively. And I encounter constantly people that don't know those principles and aren't applying the science. And if they had it and they did it, they would be like, wow, this went a lot better than I expected.
Yeah. Usually when, you're getting to that friction point, wherever that be with change management, or even, your staff people or whoever that might be, is when we step back and give ourselves some silence and say, what can I change? What is my 100% responsibility? That's what actually shifts an environment, right? And I think that's why intention setting is so important. So even if you don't fully believe that resolutions work and that sort of thing, having some time every month where you are stepping back just to assess yourself and assess, the different areas of your life and what might be off, and you shifting that by your energy being different, it's going to shift the energy around you. And so I think, just like you said, all the time, that's what, people are coming back to me with, well, how do I get this person to do that? I get it, but how does that person, you can't control another person. And when you release control and also realize that everybody's on their own journey and don't understand everybody's background and what drives them and, where they are as far as letting old belief systems go, but you do what you believe in and are intentional about it and do it in a way with acceptance and compassion, then change can happen, right? And it's amazing what you'll notice will change when you're not so focused on someone else changing.
Well, and that's, I'm going to use this project I'm on as an example, but there are a lot of things about the talent pool that are shrinking and not going in the right direction for us as a profession. And it's super easy to stop and say, well, here are the people that are at fault and here's what they better change. And that's, I've just spent the last 7 months encountering those kind of conversations pretty much perpetually. And I've started to just say, like, we all have to change, all corners of the profession, every one of us individually, change the way we're thinking, change the way we're behaving. There's no possible way to change our circumstances unless each of us owns it. And as long as we have somebody else that we have to wait on to get it done, we're not going to get it done. So anyway, I love that, Amy. I love that idea of just stop thinking about what everybody else should change and figure out what I should change.
Yeah. And so even if you have to put it on a calendar, remind yourself every 30 days, just to take a moment to review just your circumstances and what your intentions were for the year or month, it doesn't matter. And seeing if you actually stuck with it and is there a way to shift it? Because sometimes shifting things, like even, the strategy and the work that we're doing, it's going to take time. It's not going to be overnight. And so it's also making sure you don't have in your head, you need to see change right away. It's usually when you look back, you see the little shifts over time. And you're like, wow, things have changed a lot. I just didn't notice as they were happening because I stayed the course. And staying the course is the hardest part, and making sure that you are celebrating the wins along the way to keep yourself motivated and to keep yourself where you want to be eventually is really important.
I love that. I just had a thought while you were saying that about like every month to look, how am I doing with my intentions? And it's almost like you could set, if you take one of your if you have one intention, mm-hmm. Are there words under that word? that could be the January word or the February word. All kind of, all of a sudden I was creating a project plan, all with
creation.
Anyway, I was starting to think of my words and thinking about like what part of those is January and what part could be February, so that you could really get there. And I love what you said about staying the course, perseverance, consistency. There's a bunch of words to place on that, but just maybe believing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my third word, is believing. And I fought with myself a little bit because I wanted to maybe say faith, which might be the better word for it, because I'm not distrustful and I do believe, like I have faith and I do believe, so I'm not really, I don't think I'm that cynical or distrustful. I've got a little cynicism, but I'm decently optimistic and believing. And but I chose that word for my intentions this year because I really want to not just believe myself, but to try to get other people to believe that really anything's possible. And I do believe that. I was raised with that. I was literally, my mother, like, all her theory and doctrine as a parent was anything's possible. You are capable of whatever you believe you are. If you can see it, you can be it. If you believe it, you'll achieve it. Just a whole bunch of phrases that she raised us with. And I need to keep remembering those, keep them close to me so I can keep generating belief in what I need to do, or belief in doing the right thing, or belief that it could happen, or belief, but also like try to get other people to suspend practical, or suspend because we always had, or because we tried it once and it didn't work, or all that junk that burdens us, and just believe that we could create transformation. Believe that quantum leaps, your thing, that are totally and 100% possible. And I need to keep it right here for myself, not just for me to believe it, but for me to remember that part of what I have to do is try to encourage other people to believe, so they can suspend all that junk and we can do something together, something amazing together, instead of like, that. So that's my favorite. And also like almost like more like palms up,
I believe.
Like almighty power of the universe. I don't know. I'm not talking religion here, folks. There's massive power in the energy that a group of people who believes in something can create. And I mean that. It's like uncommon and amazing. And I've been part of it over and over in my life. I'm privileged to have been part of it and seen it and participated in it. And I want to keep causing it, or at least keep creating the possibility with the people I'm with that we could do something amazing here. And I just feel like that's just something I'm called to in 24. So I hope I can keep believing.
Well, we would love to know all of your intentions and words as well. And anything that you want to hear us talk about in 2024, feel free to reach out to Jen or I, or leave it in the comments. So happy New Year.
Happy New Year, and looking forward to being with you this year.